Well, hello there. How are you guys doing? Welcome back to the MMA Girl channel with your host, the MMA Girl, me, Jess. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video that is not part of my podcast, but is just about UFC 316. So I thought I'd do a separate video breaking down my predictions for the main card of UFC 316 and also all the bits and bobs, all the news surrounding this fight card and everything in between. So let's get into UFC 316. I hope you guys are excited. I'm very excited because, of course, the shambles that was UFC Vegas 107, I would like just to forget. There were some good moments, of course. I'm not going to slam this card and say it was horrible, but of course, having a week off and then getting UFC Vegas 107, that was difficult for us fight fans. So now we're going into a new week where we have something amazing to look forward to on Saturday night, and I am so excited. And of course, as I usually have a few pops in my videos, hang on a minute. This baby is on the line on Saturday night twice. This baby is on the line on Saturday night. UFC 316, we're getting, of course, Juliana Peña putting her bantamweight belt on the line for the first time, defending her title against Kayla Harrison, of course, who is coming from Bellator, coming off 2 wins since her UFC debut. She's looking good. She's looking ready. And, of course, Peña is, of course, looking very much ready as well and very ready to get in the octagon and prove why she is the best underdog on this whole card. Because, of course, with anyone going up against Kayla Harrison, she's, of course, the underdog, Juliana Peña. But that's not a problem for Juliana Peña because she said that she will show everyone why she is the best in the world. And I bet. But going on to, of course, the bantamweight male division, of course, we have Merab Dvalishvili facing Sean O'Malley for the second time in a row. For Sean O'Malley, of course, because Merab has, of course, defended his title since his fight with Sean O'Malley to get this belt. But Sean O'Malley has not fought since his last fight against Merab Dvalishvili, where he lost his belt at UFC Noche. So it's been a while, Sean. It's been a while. So this belt is on the line for the bantamweight categories in both the women's and men's divisions. And we're going to be seeing some real action on Saturday night. And let me go ham on this card because I'm going to give you my predictions, my thoughts. Patchy Mitch is here. Patchy Mix. He is, of course, a newbie coming from Bellator as well. Cannot wait to see what he's going to be doing in the UFC's male bantamweight division. So a lot of bantamweight fights on the main card here, but that's cool. That's cool with me. It's a great division and it's very exciting right now. So lots of things going on for the bantamweight division, and Patchy Mix thinks that he is going to be able to prove to everyone why he is the best in the world and why Mario Batista is just a small test for him because he will go on to, of course, win a belt at UFC. That's what he is destined for, in his opinion. So we'll be seeing that. We'll be seeing that, guys. Okay, so let me put my belt away because that was just to say that the belt's on the line. This is, of course, not a real one. It's a bit of metal, but most plastic. So we're going to be putting this away. Let me just put this away. Okay. So before I get into my full card breakdown and predictions, I'm only going to be predicting the 5 main card fights because, of course, as I said to you guys in my previous videos, in France, we don't have any prelim betting options. We cannot bet on the prelim fights at all, which is quite a shame because a lot of the best betting odds are from catching those little prelim fights that could be unpredictable. And unfortunately for us in France, you can't bet on the prelims, but this is a big card. So we have, early prelims, prelim cards. I'm quite disappointed that I can't actually bet on this card. But before we go into the main card predictions and some of my breakdown of the whole card in general, let me go over some of the news I've heard surrounding this card before we delve into the fights that are going to be going down. You may have obviously heard that Merab has broken his toe or potentially just injured his toe. He put a photo on Twitter of his big toe in quite a mess and said that he broke his toe, but that's nothing for him compared to some of the other injuries he'd had to deal with during his fight camps and during some of his previous fights, which is what his coach, John Wood, said, that this is nothing compared to some of the injuries that have to deal with in previous fights. So he has nothing to worry about. He does not worry about the little toe problem. And because Merab's obviously mostly a grappler, I think his toe will be less of a problem than if he was someone who high kicked a lot of his opponents and that was his main weapon in his fights. If he wanted to do more high kicks, that may cause a problem, but I don't even think for Merab he would prevent himself from getting an opportunity to high kick Sean O'Malley if the opportunity presented itself. Honestly, knowing Merab, why would he prevent himself from hitting Sean O'Malley in the head? So let me just say, I think that this is real good sportsmanship, because if he believes that he has not a problem, despite the fact that a broken toe or injured toe that looks like that may be a problem for some of the fighters, like, for example, Conor McGregor, that I think is amazing to show to other fighters that, listen, I'm the champion. I could pull out of this fight, but I'm not going to pull out. He is never going to pull out. Merab is such a lethal weapon. He's the machine, Merab Dvalishvili, and I can't wait to see this fight on Saturday night, because I think, as most of you guys may also agree with me, I think that as long as Merab fights the way he does, even though for some people it's quite boring, I think he'll keep his belt. Of course, Sean O'Malley says he's worked a lot on his grappling this camp. We saw on Tim Welch's channel that most of the time they stay quite far and disconnected from city life and reality. You know, Sean's got his he's got his farm, his houses are built on the same property, and he's got his gym, which is, of course, allowed him to have his children around all the time when he's during his training camp. So unlike some fighters who have to leave their homes and go to training camps in other countries or in other towns, or just leave their homes to be completely locked in, he can lock himself in his little bubble with his wife, his kids, and of course his coach. So I think he's got a great system in place. He's explaining he's made a lot of changes to his daily life, etc. So he knows the keys to victory. He knows that he needs to work a lot on his ground game, and I think especially he'll need to be able to counter those takedowns and be less manhandled by Merab Dvalishvili this time, because it's not fun to see someone being manhandled like that by a man that's much smaller than you, but also just in general, you just know you don't have the control of the fight when he's manhandling you in that way. So I think he's probably going to work on that a lot harder this time, because last time, of course, as we saw on all his social media, he was picking at Merab with his, the fact that he was small, he was, making jokes about it. Merab also jokes about his opponents, but he's got his serious side to him, and Sean O'Malley was lacking that seriousness that he needed to lock himself really into that fight. So this time around, I think we're going to see a new and improved Sean O'Malley. If after this fight Sean O'Malley loses again, then he'll have to go back to the drawing board, see what he wants to improve. He has talked about moving up to featherweight. That could be an option for him. I think Tim Welch was saying, if this fight concludes and he does not have the belt, maybe a move up to featherweight would be a good idea to see how he would fare against some of the featherweight opponents. Maybe because whilst Merab is the champion of this division, most people won't be able to penetrate and get that belt ever again until he retires or starts losing his cardio, because that's his main, I think his mainly for weapon is his cardio for Merab. But anyway, I'd love to see Sean O'Malley move up to featherweight. I'd love to see how that would be for him. One day we may see a Sean O'Malley Volkanovski or Sean O'Malley Diego Lopez. These are fights that could be dream fights that we'd love to see, and different people stylistically for Sean O'Malley, because I think he might be, after this fight, if he loses again, a bit tired of fighting the same old Merab Dvalishvili, of course. Other news, of course, as we know, Mario Bautista will be facing newly signed Patchy Mix, which was not agreed upon originally. Bautista was supposed to, of course, face Marlon Chito Vera, but Chito pulled out of that fight a couple of months ago due to injury. We don't know exactly what's happened. We don't know why, but that fight has been cancelled. And of course, we have learnt of the signing of Patchy Mix to the UFC, who is former Bellator Bantamweight champion. I believe he's a multiple-time champion, multiple belts he's had over his Bellator career. So he is looking to prove why he's the best in the world with a record of 20 wins to 1 loss. That's an amazing record, but when you come to the UFC, it's a whole nother level. For example, Patricio Pitbull went up against Yair Rodriguez. Yes, he did lose by decision, so he didn't get knocked out or submitted, but he didn't win his debut fight at the UFC, which was a shame. As I spoke about on my podcast episode, which you can go and check out now, The UFC are now putting new patches on the fighters' gear, so mostly on their shorts, and it says UFC debut on it. So we should be seeing Patchy Mix with his fight shorts on, and there should be that patch saying UFC debut on the shorts that Patchy wears on Saturday night. I didn't notice the patches on the shorts on Saturday night. There were two prelim fighters that had those patches on their shorts. I didn't notice it. I didn't pay enough attention, but I was watching the fights enough that I didn't notice those patches on the shorts. Maybe due to the color of their shorts, maybe it's more camouflaged. We'll see. I don't know when we'll see that, but that's what we should be expecting when we see Patchy Mix coming to the octagon on Saturday night for his fight against Mario Batista. Last but not least, Corey Sandhagen, of course, is the next in line for the title shot. And then Peter Yan, whilst he's waiting for his title shot, because he is, of course, after Corey Sandhagen, next in line, there are rumors that Peter Yan was going to be taking on number 13 ranked bantamweight fighter Marcus McGee. Now, a lot of people are saying, of course, that is probably fake news. This could be a rumor that may come to fruition, as a lot of rumors do, but it also could be a rumor that we forget and will never be spoken about again. Of course, Peter Yan being number 2 ranked in the bantamweight division, it was kind of a shock for people to see him being put up against someone that is number 13 ranked. This would be McGee's biggest challenge yet, and yet he's not even touched the rest of the bantamweight division in the top 10. So not really sure if that's going to happen. I hope for Peter Yan's career that's not going to happen, because he's not at the start of his career either. So wasting time on that kind of fight, I don't think is the right thing for him right now. And whilst I'm all for lower ranked fighters getting their shot with higher ranked fighters, I think there's too much of a gap between number 2 ranked and number 13 ranked for that even to be worth it for either guys. Anyway, what do you guys think of that? Do you think that rumor is true? And if it's true, what do you think of that matchup? Do you think this bout is worth doing, or do you think Peter Yan could more likely just wait on the sidelines and then be offered something a bit more interesting for him? Anyway, let's get on to this card. I'm going to highlight some of the prelim fights that are looking interesting to me. On the early prelim card, we have 4 fights, starting with Markel Medeiros versus Mark Trinsky. And the early prelim card ends with a female fight in the flyweight division between Ariana Lipsky and Wang Kong. Then on the prelim card, we have also 4 fights, and notably on this card we have Sergey Spivak taking on Cortez Acosta. That's going to be a cool fight, I think, for both guys, because Cortez Acosta is lower in the rankings of the heavyweight division than Spivak. So if he beats Spivak, he'll be able to move up in the rankings of the heavyweight division. And of course, for Spivak, he's got a lot to prove since his last defeat against Jason Almeida, who got a TKO in the first round over Spivak. So there's a difference in levels here. Spivak used to be the boogeyman. Everyone was scared of him. Now he's got a lot to prove because he's been debunked. That has been debunked. No one is scared of him now. So Cortez Acosta has a chance to either flatline Spivak, or Spivak can then regain a bit of the audience's confidence, and of course the UFC's confidence that he's still a worthy heavyweight opponent. So I can't wait to see that fight. We're also going to be seeing Brenson Ribeiro coming back on the jump, because we didn't see him long ago. We saw him on the 16th of March win via submission in the second round against Nurgaze, who was at the time undefeated. So really cool to see Ribeiro getting that win and coming around with a turnaround that's quite quick. But the UFC seems to do that at the moment. I'm noticing it with a lot of fighters that get first round or second round KOs or submissions, getting rebounded straight away into another fight a couple months later. And I love to see it, because I think that's capitalizing on their flow, on their success, and showing them that you give us fights that are entertaining like that, we'll give you fights full stop. And that I love to see. The featured prelim for ESPN on the prelim card is between Bruno Silva and Joshua Van, who we didn't see too long ago at UFC 313 and then on the 9th of March. So he's coming back again after a fast turnover from his decision win. And we'll see him facing Bruno Silva, who is at the moment at 14 victories to 6 defeats. So he has a lot of things to prove, whereas Joshua Van is sitting at 13 victories to 2 defeats. And I think he'd like to keep his defeat number down. So that would be cool. That would be a nice featured prelim. So let's go on to our main card, guys. 5 bouts on the UFC 316, starting, of course, with Vicente Luque taking on the ever fit, ever ready, ever determined Kevin Holland, whom I saw personally in the flesh, and I took pictures with at UFC's London card, where we saw Leon Edwards taking on Sean Brady in the main event at welterweight. I think in this case, seeing him coming up against Vicente Luque, I honestly think Vicente Luque will get the win here. Luque is obviously a very strong Brazilian fighter, coming off of a win. Not seen him in a while. He submitted in the first round the Zimbabwean prospect Temba Garimbo, and since we saw Vicente submit Temba we've not seen again. But I think that with the fact that he has had a lot of rest since the month of December, and the fact that he is on a roll right now, I think there's no way that Kevin Holland's going to win this fight, in my opinion anyways. I think we're going to be seeing an early round submission again from Vicente Luque. Why not? When it's not broke, don't fix it. You've got a nice method against more of a striker than a grappler. Of course, Kevin's great on the ground, but I don't see him beating a Luque on the ground at all. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I'm going to go for a second round submission for Vicente Luque. Next up, we have Mario Bautista, of course, versus the newbie Patchy Mix. He's full of energy. He's got a lot of confidence, and he's looking to show us what he's worth. And I think this time around, for a UFC debut from a former Bellator champion, I think we're most likely to see him win this fight, because he's going to bring all his skills to the table. He doesn't want to leave anything out. He doesn't want to leave anything on the side. He wants to show us just what he's made of. And Patchy Mix has not fought in a MMA octagon since March 2024. So it's been over a year since he's been in the octagon, over a year since he's been in action. And his last loss was in 2020 to a unanimous decision. So he's never been finished in his entire career, and he generally gets his finishes done by a submission. He's got really great stats. He's got really great skills. His most deadly weapon is his ground game. So will Mario Bautista have what it takes to counter that? Mario Bautista is also quite good on the ground. He has the same percentage of wins via submission as Patchy Mix does in his career. So if they want to counter each other and not get into a situation where they're just on the ground rolling about, they may stay on the feet and try to KO each other, or at least get the points up and then get obviously a decision win. This could go either way. Both guys really quick on the feet. I think this could go really either way, but I'm going to go for Patchy Mix via unanimous decision. If it's not a unanimous decision, it will be a KO from Patchy Mix. He's been working on his sparring and he's been working on his boxing, so I think that he needs to work more on that in his fight against Mario Bautista. He needs to work him on the feet and tire him out, and maybe get that TKO finish or KO finish, or at least a unanimous decision for his first fight at the UFC. Next up, we have the rebooked bout between Gastelum and Joe Pyfer, who, of course, Joe Pyfer, of course, was ill just before his fight against Gastelum. If you guys remember, I think he pulled out because he was ill. He got food poisoning. It was for obviously UFC Mexico City. So eating the food in Mexico City may have upset his stomach and unfortunately forced him to pull out. So this fight is, of course, a long time in the making. Both guys, of course, have not fought since this bout was cancelled. Gastelum at the end of his career, of course, who just was inducted into Hall of Fame for his fight against Israel Adesanya. So he hasn't got much to prove. He's, of course, got, as he said, a lot left in the tank, and we're going to be seeing potentially a new version of Kevin Gastelum here on Saturday night. And he's had a few extra months to prepare for Joe Pyfer. So a lot of things on the line for these guys, a lot of potential frustration built up to get into the octagon and do this fight once and for all. But I think that, weighing the pros and cons, I think Joe Pyfer will still win this fight. I said it the last time this fight was on the card that Joe Pyfer was going to win, and I'll say it again. I think he'll get a late round KO over Kevin Gastelum, and that's my prediction for that fight. What do you guys think of this fight? Do you think that the fact that they've had a bit more time has given Gastelum some time to get back to the gym and improve even more? Or do you think he's got no more left in the tank and that he will be easy money for Joe Pyfer? And I would say Joe Pyfer is probably going to win this one. For the co-main, of course, as I said, the women's bantamweight UFC title is on the line between the current champion, Juliana Peña, versus newbie Kayla Harrison, who has only got one loss to her record in 18 victories, compared to Juliana Peña's 13 victories to 5 defeats. Juliana Peña is often very provocative. She likes to talk. She likes to get on that mic. She said it herself. She's as much of a fighter as she is a talker, and she loves talking. She loves defending herself. She loves picking herself up. And I completely understand that. I completely love that about her. But I love that for her more than anything. But we are going to be seeing that come to fruition in the octagon on Saturday. And that's when the speaking will be over and you have to work. And Kayla Harrison is not easy money for Juliana Peña. As the odds would say, of course, the booking odds are saying that Kayla Harrison is going to walk all over Juliana Peña. I think this fight, if it doesn't end in a UD for Kayla Harrison, I think that she may be able to get some ground and pound and TKO Juliana Peña. That is my opinion, not what will happen. That is what I think. Opinions, not facts. But what do you guys think of Juliana Peña? Do you think she'll keep her belt? Do you think this will be her first and last title defense for this title reign? Of course, being a former champion before getting this championship belt. So this will be her first title defense of her second reign. Will she win this title defense, or will she lose her belt to Kayla Harrison? I think Kayla Harrison her path has been etched out already since she came to the UFC, of course, against Holly Holmes. I think she knew what path she had to take to get to the belt, and she's done 2 amazing fights in her UFC debut, winning via submission in the second round to Holly Holmes. Of course, Holly Holmes at the end of her career, but that doesn't mean she's a bad fighter. She was the one who dethroned Ronda Rousey, and everyone was so shocked about it. That's no one to be slept on, and Kayla Harrison made light work of her. Then she went on, of course, to fight Vieira, who is not to be slept on either. Kayla just came in there and got them done. She's one of the Bellator fighters that were just too good for Bellator, and now she's too good for the UFC's Bantamweight division, of course. So I see, as I said, Kayla Harrison getting a UD or a late finish on Juliana Peña. That's all I have to say on that. What are your thoughts? And last but not least, of course, the main event, again in the Bantamweight division, but the men's Bantamweight division, between Sean O'Malley and the champion, the cardio machine, Merab. Now, Merab, of course, as I said earlier on in this video, he has broken his toe. That is nothing for Merab. So I think that we're going to be seeing, despite that, a fully functioning Merab. I think Merab's going to win this fight hands down. I think we're going to go over 5 rounds with a lot of grappling, a lot of groundwork. Sean O'Malley may take him down also to try and level up the balance, because the strategy here has to be get the points in, because if he can't KO Merab, because Merab's always going into clinch, then why not try also to reverse the roles and take Merab down and use his height to take him to the ground and get some ground and pound in, work on that. He may be able to reverse things when you're on the ground, Sean, but at least you'll be able to have those points get on the scorecard for the takedowns that you're able to perform on Merab. He's very hard to take down, I know, but I think that Sean O'Malley, he's been working on a lot of the grappling, jiu-jitsu, etc. He needs to use that to his advantage on Saturday. Take Merab down, ground and pound, try and get those points, use your position. Maybe, just maybe, we may see a takeover for Sean O'Malley, but I personally think we won't. I personally think that Sean will rack up the points a bit more in this 5-rounder, and that Merab will notice that over 5 rounds, potentially around about the 2nd or 3rd round, he'll say to himself, I need to go heavy on the grappling and submit this guy, because he's getting points by countering my takedowns and also taking me down, or at least trying to, and getting those jabs. And of course, not forgetting the striking. Of course, Sean O'Malley is a pure boxer to begin with, so he shouldn't forget his original skill set, but he needs to add to his skill set in this fight to rack up those points, and that will put the pressure on Merab to maybe slip up and also get the finish, and not just let us wait until the fifth round for the judges' scorecard. So if I was to say my exact prediction for this fight, I would say that Merab will win via UD, or I think Merab will get a 3rd or 4th round submission on Sean O'Malley, because he won't have a choice, seeing as the scorecards won't be saying the same thing as the last time. And if he doesn't obviously get a submission in the 3rd or 4th or 5th round, I think he'll finish with the UD, because even with Sean's efforts to counter the points with his own countering, taking down, ground and pound, etc. I don't think that will be enough to counter Merab's work on the ground. He just needs to work a little bit more on when he's got the control time. Merab needs to use it more, not just for us to be more entertained, but just for him to be able to rack up more points whilst he's taking down Sean O'Malley, if, for example, Sean O'Malley takes him down as well. Because, of course, the judges will give you points for the control time and for takedowns, but they won't rack up the points as much as you'd like if you just take your opponent down and hug them for 5 minutes every round. So he needs to use his position a little bit more in order to rack up the points against Sean, because Sean will try and rack up the points against him in a more strategic way this time, in my opinion. So that's all I have for you guys on UFC 316. That is my roundup, my predictions, and my debrief of this whole card, and of course my predictions for the 5 main card bouts coming up on Saturday night. I'm really excited for this card, as you might be as well. Of course, this month we have 2 numbered cards, of course, 216 and 217. 217, of course, we cannot deny we are a little bit more excited for that one, because we're going to be seeing Ilia Topuria make his lightweight debut, and of course Charles Oliveira fight Ilia for the vacant UFC lightweight title. So that's going to be on the line on the 28th of June. But for the 7th of June, this Saturday, we have a great fight card, and I'm really excited to see that. So I'll be up and ready to watch these fights. I hope you guys, if any of you guys are listening from Europe, I hope you guys are going to be up with me. At least this card this time around is going to be worth it. I'm sure of it. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of my predictions for this fight card, and like, comment, subscribe as usual. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you next week for a new episode of my podcast where we break down UFC 316's card and everything that happened and all the latest fight news as usual. See you guys later. Bye.